Hello, Ken Utley here. We're going to take a few minutes and look at some of the overall concepts that are provided in the SIMSIII for Windows. First, the SIMSIII for Windows is written in C# and .NET. That in itself has tremendous implications regarding future enhancements, future modifications, actual connection to database, as well as other type system development kits that are available for different products in our industry. The whole thing starts with this: the SIMSIII settings. In the SIMSIII settings screens, we make several important choices. Number one, if it's a SIMS2 type database, we select the path for that database here. There is a browse button to go find it. When you install your demo, if you want to connect it to your existing database, you simply browse for the path that gets you to your Novell server or Windows server. You may choose the SQL version, and in here you'll browse for the different SQL servers that the system can find. And then once you do that, you can choose the individual database. In this case, I've got one server available. It is on my local drive, as you could see too. Now, once you get that selection done for the SQL database, then we're going to actually have the existing database that we're going to move to. In this case, there's a few other databases there, but we'll just come back and select that one. There is a forms directory which could be on the local drive or could be on the server, which contains all the different forms for all the different reports. In this case, we're using Windows authentication into the server, but it could be a completely different authentication. We'd have to add in the user and password, and then we can test the connection to the database. I'm going to leave this on the flat file database only because it's been set up for this demonstration for you. On the email capabilities, SIMSIII can directly email out of it. You can zip attachments. There is a mail server here. We use this one for the demo customers. We can do different things like this. Keep in mind, though, that it keeps no records for emails going out. And therefore, many people are going to want to use ComServer for that kind of capability, so we can get everything and all of the capabilities that we need. You can, of course, choose the font size if you want to modify it from the defaults. For those of you that have TAPI devices, the SIMSIII works directly with TAPI. In this case, there is a HUD TAPI device involved, and we can use that for dialing out. We can put in a test number and test our thing there. Here are the rules. If you want to bring up Windows rules, they're the standard rules here, and we can use those for the dialing from here, so that if you have the area code, you can put decisions in here whether you want to dial a 1 for it or not for it. SIMSIII has chat capability and also connection to the Google Maps server. This is a very important part of the whole thing. I don't have the chat capability set up here, but if we did, we would just put that in along with an IP address and a port number. These things are variable to get us through the different firewall considerations. The purpose of the chat server is to allow operators, supervisors, and personnel to talk to one another, and that chat capability will be found over here, along with here's where you would type your chat information or your messages you want to send out. There is a SIMS online server. This is very important for a lot of the things you're going to see, which is address verification, authority database information, postal code information. All these kinds of things are residing on the SIMS online server back in Texas, but you can communicate through the internet to get this information. This means obviously you have all in the latest information, but just as important to that, it keeps you from having to keep a local database for all these things at your local place. If we have information on an authority, when you go to put that authority into global phone numbers, you will connect to the SIMS online server and it will retrieve that information. We'll find that in another snippet of these different videos that we do. The Central Station country of origin is important because that controls the database that you will go to on the SIMS line server. You may choose the language. In this case, there is already complete Spanish, complete Portuguese, complete English, the Australian modifications for English, and the others are currently under development. The maximum traffic number of events can be elevated in the SIMSIII. If you're using the SIMSIII along with the receiver 3, this can be extended to 500 signals on your traffic display. Here's where you can also turn on and off tooltips throughout the program. There are several other things, English language and site codes. A lot of these won't really pertain to the average user, but you may have received instructions from SIMS personnel to enable or disable these depending on your particular location in Central Station. When you're in all the action screens, that's the routine action, the priority action, or the modified priority action, you have the ability to turn off certain tabs. Some Central Stations would not want accounting information to be provided to the operator. So here's where you can turn that kind of information off. You may turn off maps if you don't want to. If you don't want your Central Station connecting to the outside internet to get Google Map capabilities, then you would probably turn off the map tab. Also in these different dispatch screens, you can turn on and off whether you want dealer information and which pages of dealer information that you want. One of the big things located here too is the action mask resizing. One of the things that we set out to do in the SIMSIII was to provide resizing of most every pertinent mask. Pick lists, those are the little pop-up screens. Obviously there's no purpose in resizing those, but any of these other screens can be resized simply by taking the tabs in the lower right-hand corner and stretching them out. Some will go to full screen. If they were really too small to go to full screen, then you won't have the maximize item up on the control box. Going from there, we also have account maintenance tabs. Over the years, we found out that not everybody uses all the capabilities within the program. Probably the average Central Station uses about 35 to 40%. Some have no desire at all to deal with the billing. So if you unclick that and you unclick the recurring, then those tabs will not be presented for your database entry personnel. Some would be other things. Some would not probably want equipment. And of course, we spoke earlier, if you didn't want maps, you probably would have that turned off too. Same goes for the dealer. If you review the dealer pages, you may or may not want all of those dealer capabilities there. When you've decided that you've got what you wanted, then you just simply click OK, and it saves those parameters away. Now, these parameters that you've seen are based on computer to computer. So therefore, you can turn off some tabs for some computers and not for others. Database people that were dealing with accounting would obviously want the accounting tabs. If you have other database people that have no desire or no clearance to go into that, then they wouldn't add the tabs for their. Anytime you want to know the about information, current revisions, expiration dates, and so forth like that, you can visit the Help About. Although video snippets are available for most of these things, we're going to also stop for just a moment and look at the filtering capability that's available throughout the SIMSIII. This is just filtering capability for finding accounts and dealers. And there is filtering capability for email addresses and almost every item in the program. These are very powerful. For example, I could say, I want all accounts that have Acme anywhere in their different fields. And C+S. So in that case, I've said give me all accounts that have Acme and C+S for their somewhere in their database, and in this case the AND function limits me down to 1. I could have enhanced that capability and said I want all accounts that have Acme in there and SIMS in there. In this case, it expands things further and starts giving me all the accounts that have there. Could have SIMS in the name here. You know, in this case, happens to be the group SIMS. We could say all accounts that have great in their address. It can do a sliding search, or it actually by default does a sliding search, and this speed is not based on the number of accounts. This is a quick memory search, so you're going to see this kind of speed no matter which way you go to. Now let's take just a moment and look at the traffic display. The traffic display is a part that most people have already seen in one of our other products. It contains the priority of the event, the time the event was received, the account number, physical line number received, which is very important for audio capability, the zone, current status, whether the account's opened or closed, a short description of what the event is, along with any operators that have completed or currently working on the event. Items that have a check mark are completed items. No check mark means the event is still pending. Now, working from the traffic display, we've got a lot of capability right here. For example, I can click on the search button and get a very similar search screen than what you saw before, except this one will allow me to also search for contacts. In this case, I put JOH. It looked at all the contact names and found any name that has a JOH in it. We could have said Arleta, A-R-L-E. In this case, Charles, Arleta Police, Arleta Fire Department. If I have a contact that's on the phone, I can narrow it down by putting in a phone number. Let's say I've got a caller that hung up on me and I want to get back to him. The same thing, of course, is true for the pass card. So this filtering capability is very, very important. Now also note, wherever you are, if you want to get to a screen like this, in this case, this is a pass card pick screen. It has filtering capability also. It lets you actually break down some filtering different than what you have selected on your screen, because it'll give you a wider capability. Obviously, you can do the class picks and so forth like that. Once you do those, you can pick individual accounts or dealers. You can just simply do a double click and so forth like that. So the filtering capability for those operators that are working the traffic display is excellent. Now, you can move these screens. You can have multiple items going on at the same time. I've kind of localized things here, so it just makes the presentation a little bit easier for you to understand. Handling a dispatch screen when you're on the traffic couldn't be easier. A simple double click, and then you will get up the dispatch screen. In this case, this is our new modified dispatch screen that has operator requirements. Forces them to do certain things. From here, of course, you can do your dialing that you've been used to do. You can modify temp schedules. It can be just as simple as extending the closing for 1 hour. You can place accounts on test, and again, this is just as simple as placing them there, putting a comment in there. You can choose a particular zone, exclude mnemonics. All the capabilities that you're used to are still in there. There are any number, well, in fact, the maximum number is 48 hotkeys that are available. As you can see at the bottom, the hotkeys change as I hit the Alt key, the Shift key, or no key. Let's move away from the traffic display just for a minute, and I want to bring your attention to another very important thing in the program itself. All history, all reports now go through a report viewer. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say I want an account status or stats an Excel report. And I'm going to be very simplistic here. So I say all accounts just for today. Now it brings up a report viewer screen. This report viewer screen is a last moment attempt to let the operator make sure this is the report they want, and they can now select who they want it to go to. They can do an email where they enter the address, they can pick it out of the email list, so forth like that. If this report were a subscriber type report, like a print full file, then it would allow them to pick the account's primary email address, the secondary, or the same for the dealers, so they can ship it to whom they want. But in our case here, what I would like to show you is the ability to change what you see here by saving it to a file, by exporting it to a CSV file, which will automatically open up Excel, or you can export it to an Excel template that we've created for you. Or you can export this report into a PDF file. Now, why the one you see in front of you right now obviously would have no real purpose in sending it to a PDF, but what it will show you is I'm going to export it to an Excel. So it takes and automatically opens up Excel. And this particular report, since it's a stencil and has a template report, you can set up graphs to be automatically inserted into this report. This is really lovely. There's a lot of capability right here, and we're going to enhance that capability even more. Should also take a second and make you aware that any of these search screens that you're in, you can right-click and you have several different options. You can take you straight to view the account of the dealer. You can get up a small page that gives you a quick snippet of account information about this account. You can export this screen here to an Excel screen. Had to get it redone and laid down there, that you can then import into Excel. So you could take information, you can filter for information, and then export that information. You can even copy that information, place it in the clipboard, and then paste it into Account Word, or into Word for Office Word. Let's take another minute and look at another very powerful feature. On the report side, there is now the ability to take a WordStar report or create a WordStar report on various pieces of information for not only accounts, but also for dealers. Let's take a little look at the way this can work for you. The WordStar report will bring up the initial screen. From here, you can do filtering if you want. And I should also mention, I'll cover that. I should also mention that now I've got this filtering going on. I click OK, and then it's going to bring up either account maintenance for accounts or dealer maintenance, and it allows me the ability to pick the fields that I want to export. Now at this point, I have this file with this information I've identified, and it is now available for exporting, again, through the same ways you've seen before: export to a CSV, save to a file, export to a PDF. Lots of capabilities there on that. Let's take just a couple more moments to look over the account validation capabilities within the SIMSIII. We come to this screen. It will show you all. We can filter it down, just like we've done before. I can choose to validate certain parts of this information that's available there. For example, if I want to validate the premise address, the program will communicate with the SIMS online server. It will first try to verify the address completely. If it can, it will check the city, state, and zip. You can set it to correct the city, correct the zip, which is very nice because it will add zip +4 capability into your database if you desire. In this case, I'm going to do that just like this. Now this is only checking the premise address. The mailing address is another check. Now, as it validates one, it will remove it from the list. So the only ones that are left in the list are the ones that could not be validated right down to the street address. In this case, we had a complete address verified of 2 accounts. We had a city, state, zip code verified of 5 accounts. In these 5 accounts, it verified the city, state, and zip, but could not take it down to the address level. We've run this on a lot of databases, and I've done a lot of testing on this, and others have also. It is safe to assume that about 60% of your addresses are verifiable right off the bat. The program itself will correct about another 20%. Those 20% represent zip codes that are wrong, cities sometimes that are wrong, and those things can be auto-corrected. This is a fairly fast process, and it will do 5,000 at a time. Okay, so anyway, now that we've done that, I can make other changes, and I know that if I want to correct these, I can right-click, correct address, correct premise address. It will then bring up a screen that'll let me use, the online stuff to correct the street name. Maybe it's misspelled wrong, maybe it's instead of road, it's avenue, etc., etc. There are so many different possibilities. But in this case, if I knew it was in Hollywood, if I knew it was in Florida, if I knew the zip code was correct, then I can wean this down and get a little closer. In this case, let's just say it's Hollywood. I can come down here, correct that like that. I have no reason to believe the address is even close. But on an address that is close, it will actually, if you start backspacing here, as soon as you reach something it can find in the server, it will stop you right there and give you multiple choices, much exactly the same as the way the zip code did. Now let's look at some other capabilities. We can go and validate the global phone numbers. In this case, it will go and check the global phone numbers in each one of these accounts to make sure we have an entry inside of our database. In this case, it went through and it found out the Des Plaines Police actually is not located in the global phone numbers of the database. The Hollywood Fire Department, same thing there, and the Norman Police Department. So it knows that those things are not correct. We can also make other checks. Let's check the contacts. All contacts were good. The checks that we'll make is to make sure that when you have a contact and you've put the information in there, at least one day of the week is enabled. it will check the mnemonics that are assigned for that contact to make sure that all those mnemonics are valid in the system. For the zones, we can get very fancy. If you have zoning email capability, then you can say send an email for every automatic email in these zones. It'll send out a test and so forth like that. It'll return those results to support@simsiii.com, which is not what we want you to do, but you can put your own email address in there. But we'll just uncheck that for the moment. And again, it's gone through and validated a total of 113 zones. This is very, very, very good information to have. This will validate your email addresses in your accounts to make sure that they are formatted properly. Now, all it can do is format them unless you click the send email. Then it'll send out a test email. And the idea is those that are rejected will come back to support@simsiii.com, and then you can review those and know that they're incorrect. There's no way that the local mail server will know that, because it might be passed to Gmail or any of these different mail addresses, and they won't give us an instantaneous answer about their being valid or not valid. Before we leave our little demonstration here, I want to take you by a couple of other things. From Edit, Table Maintenance, this is where they're all located regarding the different kinds of tables that are kept within the system. Let's take a moment and go down to the global phone numbers, because there is something I think that you'll think is worthwhile seeing. This has to do with the SIMS Online database. I have a series of different selections here, but let's do this. Let's create a new one, and let's say we're going to create it for Plano. Notice at this point it's gone out to our servers in Texas to go look up all of the authorities that have Plano, either in the name, the city, or the county. In this case, let's say we were actually wanting to add the Plano Police Department. Now notice this one's from Illinois, and we also have one for Plano, Texas. I'm going to select the Plano, Texas. It then will fill in the information there. We'll let you put that part in there, since there's a certain limitation on existing file systems with how many spaces you can have there. Okay. But then we've added a new one. We found the phone number in our database and an alternate phone number without having to go and research it from some other method. Once we click OK, then that is in our local database and available for our dispatching personnel. We can check one more thing while we're looking at global phone numbers. SIMS also has an online validation. This is validating your local globals versus the SIMS database. Now, there is a much more extensive snippet that's going to be available for this, or is available for this, but right now, all of my globals, all I've got to do is just click validate, and it will actually sequence through and find out which ones that it found in the database. On SQL, it will save all this information in your local database, but on the existing file systems, it's limited to only what can be saved right now. But in this case, it had total matches. That means that the name was good, the phone number was good, etc., etc. Phone matches, it had 9. Now, for the phone matches, those are just as good. Unused globals, it's saying there's 10 inside of the database that are never referenced anywhere, and it's searched for a total of 14. Okay, this is the validation capability. If I just collect save right now, it'll save any extra information it might have put in there. Now, if you want to update our database, let's say that you know the Arleta Police Department exists, you can do an edit update and actually put in the information for this particular authority. Once you put that in there, it then becomes available for all customers, as well as your own validation on the next pass. This is going to conclude our overview of the SIMSIII. There are so many more features that we could go through, but we're going to produce and have already produced several snippets on these, but we really thank you for taking this time. Thank you very much.